It's 20 days to election 2020. Hello and welcome to the Midday News on your election headquarters.
We bury in 5 at a go. We're going to bury more. We only want to elect the public. The COVID is real, and therefore protect yourself. Observe the national protocol measures to protect yourself, protect your family.
COVID-19 still exists. Please observe safety protocols and stay safe. This bulletin is coming to you live from Joy 99.7 FM in Accra at digital address GA099334. It's also live on Love 99.5 FM in Kumasi, affiliates across the country, including ATL FM Cape Coast, Radio Max Takrade, and around the world at myjoyonline.com. Coming up, residents of Ayediase in Kumasi reeling from shock from a bizarre daylight shooting incident. We'll bring you why the driver who shot a painter for cautioning him to drive carefully also turned the gun on himself.
I just saw the guy slapping Amwa, so Amwa just replied the slap. Just took up the gun and just shot him. 3 times. The police just came around and they threw a gun to him. So I think he was afraid. So he just took out his gun and shot himself.
More as we get the very latest from our reporter on the ground, and governance experts say Martin Amidous' exit would amount to a loss in the fight against corruption and affect President Akufo-Addo's legacy on governance.
If the president says, okay, I accept your resignation and I'm appointing somebody, it's fatal to the integrity and strength of the office. It signals the collapse of the institute or the death of it.
Meanwhile, the MPP has jumped to the defense of the president, dismissing Mr. Amidous' claims of interference. We've got details, but some Ghanaians insist government interference is to blame for Mr. Amidous' resignation.
Ghanaians, we are not fools. This MPP government are influencing. They have an influence over it. They are not allowing him to do what he wants to do.
Somebody is influencing him to resign.
I think he wasn't left to do what he was supposed to do.
Also, with 20 days to the elections, Joy News puts the spotlight on security within communities identified as electoral hotspots. Today, we focus on Tamale, where residents are calling for increased visibility of security personnel.
We are not at ease. Young guys, people taking their motorbikes, breaking into people's rooms. When it comes to political tensions too, the kind of pronouncements people make at times it scares us.
And in sports,
CK Akono names striker Jordan Ayew as keeper as the Black Stars target AFCON 2021 qualification against Sudan this afternoon.
And later, religious leaders hail late President Jerry John Rawlings as a unifier as more people troop to the conference center to pay tribute to him.
It has become the foundation for dialogue, for unity, which currently the country is enjoying. It has remained a model.
History will definitely vindicate what he has contributed to this country.
I'm Bernice Abu-Baidoo Lansah. We've got details in a moment. It's a pleasure to have you here. The details now. Residents of Ayediase in the Ashanti region capital, Kumasi, are today reeling from the shock from a bizarre daylight shooting incident involving 2 drivers there. A driver of a Kia Salon vehicle shot himself after shooting a man who warned him against careless driving in the community near KNUST. The victim, Amwa, who is a painter, was shot 3 times in the stomach after returning a slap from the driver. The driver in turn shot himself after he was surrounded by the police, who had rushed to the scene to prevent a mob attack. Some eyewitnesses have been recounting the harrowing incident to Joy News.
It was just an argument between him and Amwa that he should drive well, because the way the guy was driving, it wasn't good at all. So that about just standing at Amwa's back. So I just saw the guy slapping Amwa. So Amwa just replied the slap to the guy. And he went back into the car and took a gun? Yeah, he just took up the gun and just shot him 3 times. So I tell them to cross the road, else the guy will just run away. So I take a car and push Amwa inside to take him to the hospital. And then the guy also shot himself. What happened? The police just came around, so they surrounded him and they threw a gun to him and said he should come out from the car. So I think he was afraid. So he just took out his gun and shot himself.
So you heard an eyewitness. Let's now touch base with Love FM's Nanaya Ojima, who is following the story. He joins us on the phone lines with details. Nanaya, tell us the condition of the 2 as we speak.
According to the police, the 2 are not dead. That's what the police have confirmed so far. According to them, they are both in critical condition, and they are at the moment at the confirmatory hospital where they are receiving medical attention under police guide.
Nanaya, it's quite difficult to hear you. I'll be glad if you could reposition yourself and tell us more about that quarrel we are told led to the shooting.
So, from the eyewitness and the police account, Mr. Samson Zabanga, who was driving the Kia Saloon car, was driving recklessly, and some people drew his attention. That Mr. Amwa drew his attention to that when he was caught in traffic. He drew his attention to that, and he came out of the car, had some exchange with Mr. Amwa, and through that one slapped the other. The other also replied a slap. So from what I'm learning from the police, Mr. Zabanga went back into his vehicle, brought out a gun, and shot Mr. Amwa 3 times in the stomach.
What more has the police been telling you about the incident?
Can you ask that question once again?
I'm asking what more the police has been telling you about the incident.
So the police say they will continue to investigate the matter. Right now, they've been able to establish what exactly happened, and also the police say the two, both the victim and also Mr. Zabanga, are under police guard in the hospital. So when they both regain consciousness, they'll take their statement and start investigations as soon as possible.
Nanaya Ojima is with Love News, our sister station in Kumasi. Let's stay on security because some residents in the northern region capital Tamale are calling for increased visibility of security personnel in the city and its environs to protect lives and property. They say they've either been victims or seen a wide range of violent crimes, including armed robbery and assault. As we draw closer to the elections, Joy News puts the spotlight on security within communities across the country identified as hotspots and seeks answers from those in authority. Well, here's head of our security desk, Cynthia, on this new initiative we are embarking on.
Well, there are 6,000 plus areas identified as hotspots as we speak. And one key criterion for earmarking a particular area as a hotspot is crime volatility or the prevalent crime rate. Now, we've heard the IGP say that as well. Of course, others include the strength of security agencies in these areas and the history of how violence generally and political violence in particular have been handled in those constituencies. In many instances, you have one group feeling emboldened to act violently with impunity, and the other group will say they feel threatened and vulnerable, so they feel the need to defend themselves. Now, this project is to create a platform for residents, the Ghanaian voter, to tell authorities and those seeking power what they want to see in their communities as far as security is concerned, and specifically what they expect to see done in the hotspots identified during and after voting on December 7. Now, we've had people blame the media for what they've sometimes described as exaggeration of isolated cases. So let's hear from the people themselves what their daily realities are and how that inform their electoral choices. And we are starting from the northern region. It is in the top 4 regions which recorded the most hotspots according to police statistics. Obviously, we're taking this project across the country, going throughout the regions in the country and hearing from residents what their concerns are and seeking answers from those in authority and those who are seeking power right now. So look out for our correspondents in your area.
That's head of our security desk, Cynthia, giving us details of our series on security within communities across the country. Well, we begin today with a spotlight on the northern region from where Martin Amidous reports.
The northern region has had its fair share of robberies and violent crimes this year. Areas noted for these crimes include Vitin, Kapa Yilifuo, communities around the School of Hygiene and circulated areas in the metropolis and its environs. Famous among these crimes were the Vitin mobile money robbery, the Kapayeli fuel station robbery where one person was killed, the robbery of a forest bureau operator, and the near rape of an 18-year-old girl whose rescuer was killed.
We used to hardly record what we call armed robbery or serious theft cases, but of late you even find it very difficult to ride your motor from 9 p.m. and onwards. So these days, if at least the authorities will be able to help curb it, put what we call the Operation Calm Life so that they will be putting a lot of checkpoints on our roads. It will be able to help us.
There was a tax in Tamale here, especially the filling station, mobile money vendors, the state institutions. They intend to arrange some items like security barriers and the rest in town. So all they said, within some short period, they stop. The issue arises again. They start attacking mobile money vendors.
We have to let them to be very alert. You know, Northern Virginia, we don't feel safe at all.
With less than a month to go to the polls, the residents are worried with the already volatile situation, and arms in wrong hands, the region may not be able to handle additional political violence. They are therefore calling for increased security in the area.
We are not at ease. Young guys, teenage people taking their motorbikes, breaking into people's rooms. When it comes to political tensions too, the kind of pronouncements people make at times it scares us. The security, the police, the fire, all the security agencies, they should come together to collaborate.
For the gun aspect, it's all about it to have money. It is something we sell for you.
Martin Amidous with that report. Now, Mr. Martin Amidous' exit would amount to a loss in the fight against corruption and adversely affect President Akufo-Addo's legacy on governance. That's according to some governance experts who've been reacting to his decision to walk away from the job. Mr. Amidous tendered in his resignation on Monday, saying he had become convinced that he was not intended to exercise any independence on the job. In his resignation letter, he explained he decided to quit after President Akufo-Addo tried to get him to quote-unquote, shelve the report on the corruption risk assessment on the Ajapa royalties deal. In that particular letter, he also wrote, quote, "You had labored under the mistaken belief that I could hold the office of the special prosecutor as your poodle," end quote. Well, we've been receiving some reactions from the presidency. Presidential correspondent Elton Brobe joins us with details. Hello, Elton. We understand that the president has been responding to the claim by Mr. Amidous, especially on the resourcing of his office.
Well, we don't have a direct response from the president. What we do have, correspondence between the office of the special prosecutor, the chief of staff, and the director here at the Jubilee, the director here at the Jubilee House, and it relates to the issue of an office complex for the office of the special prosecutor. The other issue relates to the payment of salary and other issues. Now, this has been made possible because what I've picked from some people here at the Jubilee House is that they find it rather surprising that in the communication announcing his resignation, the special prosecutor makes reference to the fact that he was ill-resourced to carry out his mandate. And indeed, the correspondence we have laid our hands on, relates to these matters. First, do more with the handing over of a 9-story building originally occupied by the debt fund to the Office of Special Prosecutor for use as the operational headquarters. And in this correspondence, the Chief of Staff, in a letter to the Office of the Special Prosecutor, addressed to the Special Prosecutor himself, handed over some keys, made reference to the handing over of some keys to Mr. Amidous for him to now go and inspect the building and take custody of. Now, a reply from Mr. Martin Amidous, and I want to just quote a portion of it. He says that this is Martin Amidous speaking, he says, you also recall that in about March or April 2019, you personally brought a bunch of keys to hand over to me, allegedly for the same building. We are talking about a 9-story building originally occupied by Get Fund, and according to the chief of staff, it was given to Mr. Martin Amidous to use as operational head office. And Mr. Martin Amidous says that I was at pains to explain to you how it was procedurally and technically not feasible for me to just accept keys to a building without any due process having taken place. You came again the next day with the deputy chief of staff, and I carefully explained to both of you the state of the building and requested you to visit the place and to take inventory of the suitability of the physical structure of the occupation. It goes on to say that Mr. Amidous returned the keys to the office of the chief of staff. Now, the chief of staff, in another letter to Mr. Amidous, says that we wish to explain to you there was no ill motive behind our decision to send the keys to the building to you. Rather, as you had indicated in your letter, and it makes reference to this letter dated 10th July 2020, this office has far advanced in the process of seeking approval of the PPA to enable it begin the process to award the sole source contract for the conversion of the whole premises into suitable office accommodation and division, we deem it right and appropriate to give you possession and unfettered access to the building after Get Fund has certified completion of the identifiable defects. This was indeed the reason we sent the letter and accompanying keys to you on the 11th of September, which was unfortunately rejected. You may respectfully wish to reconsider your decision.
All right.
Many thanks for your user copy. And this is signed by the Honorable Koshilamti or Chief of Staff. And this is dated in September. There's also another memo which talks about
Elton, we'll quickly have to wrap this up, but we understand that the board of the Office of the Special Prosecutor will be meeting today.
Yeah, so what I've been doing this morning is trying to get a word from government as to government position on the resignation letter submitted by Mr. Martin Amidous yesterday. Now, what I've picked is that the board of the Office of the Special Prosecutor is currently meeting. Any communication from government may rest on the decision taken by the board as to who may be in active position and government position in accepting or rejecting the resignation by Martin Amidous will be informed by the outcome of this board meeting that's currently underway.
Elton Brobe is presidential correspondent, executive director of the Institute for Democratic Governance, IDEC. Dr. Emmanuel Akwete says the president's acceptance of Mr. Amidous' resignation would amount to a loss in the fight against corruption and adversely affect his legacy on governance. He spoke earlier on the AM show.
If the president says, okay, I accept your resignation and I am appointing somebody, it's fatal to the integrity and strength of the office. That is what we are faced with now. It signals, the collapse of the institute or the death of it, spiritually, because you need somebody with a certain quality to build the institution. Institutions are built by human beings who are principled, who have the courage to face the powerful, and who prevail or are allowed or supported. You need such strong institutions, and it will be built by leaders, human beings. So he's one of such. If we say he should go, we set a very bad precedent, because whoever is appointed after him will say, Ghanaians will tell him, remember what happened to Martin Amidous.
That was Executive Director of IDEC, Dr. Emmanuel Akwete. Meanwhile, the NPP has jumped to the defense of the president, dismissing Mr. Amidous' claims of interference. We have details of a statement the party has released, and my colleague Enes Menu joins us in studio with that. What more does the statement say?
Well, the statement says that Mr. Amidous has not resigned because any investigation of his has been interfered with by the presidency or any member of government. Since 2018, he has been offered all room and support he needed by law and mandate, and every money he has requested to set up an entirely new institution which comes with its own challenges and to operate the office independently and efficiently. No political office holder has interfered in the administration of that office. It continues to say that indeed that his actions appear to impact both the incumbent and immediate past government vindicates the wisdom of the mandate and powers of the office which he occupied. An office hinge on independence of thought and actions. But this one is also crucial. It says independence cannot be infallible. Independence does not mean the actions of the office cannot be commented upon by the people, as has happened with Mr. Amidous' report on Ejapa. And this is a statement signed by the communications director of the party, Yalwa Piasama.
Well, Martin Amidous' resignation has sent tongues wagging on the streets, while many express surprise about the development. The one thing that kept coming up were concerns he wasn't allowed to execute his responsibilities in a free and transparent manner. Listen.
Ghanaians, we are not fools. This MPP government are influencing. They have an influence over it. They are not allowing him to do what he wants to do. So that means that there's no need for him to be in that office. You can't just put somebody over there and then be controlling the person.
Somebody is influencing him to resign, or the pressure on him for the work is too much.
I think it's not well done, What we are expecting him to do, I don't think he did it. Confused. So he has to resign for maybe to give a space for somebody who can do it better.
So you feel the pressure was too much for him?
I think so. Maybe he also needs his peace.
I think he wasn't left to do what he was supposed to do. Some interference here and there and all that. So maybe the next person who will come should be left to work on his own.
You heard there some Ghanaians sharing their thoughts on Mr. Martin Amidous' resignation. So the next question is, who fills his shoes? According to the OSP Act 959, when the office of the Special Prosecutor becomes vacant, the President has to, within 6 months, appoint a qualified person for the position. The person will take and subscribe to the oath of office, an oath of secrecy as specified within the schedule. His deputy, Cynthia Jane Koshilamti, assumes the seat, though temporarily. There's more about her in this News Desk report.
Cynthia Jane Koshilamti is a Ghanaian lawyer and public servant. She was employed as a state attorney at the Attorney General's Department in 1995 and rose through the ranks till she was appointed Director of Public Prosecutions during the John Mahama administration. As the country's chief prosecutor, she handled several high-profile cases, including the case of the alleged stealing of 86.9 million cedis by an executive director of the National Service Scheme and the criminal prosecution of Alfred Agbesi Woyome. After 20 years of service to the nation, she left the department in 2015. In January 2018, after the official appointment of Martin Amidous as Ghana's first special prosecutor, she was nominated by President Akufo-Addo as his deputy special prosecutor. Here are excerpts of her vetting in Parliament.
The office you are to assist, and sometimes when the special prosecutor is absent, you will be the man. Are you prepared for the job, and what will you do unique?
If you give me the nod, I've been put there to work, and that is what I'm going to do.
I'm just reminding the nominee how big the feet of the Honorable Martin Amidous is as special prosecutor, and whether she can ably fit into that uncompromising anti-corruption stance. Will you be a good complement?
I would.
She was subsequently given the nod and sworn into office. So, will she become the next substantive special prosecutor?
You're listening to the Midday News here on Joy 99.7 FM with me, Bernice Abu-Baidoo Lansah. Still to come, religious leaders hail late President Jerry John Rawlings as a unifier as more people troop to the conference center to sign the Book of Condolence opened in his honor.
It has become the foundation for dialogue, for unity, which currently the country is enjoying. It has remained a model.
History will definitely vindicate what he has contributed to this country.
Fellow Ghanaians, the stakes are high for our country this December. Don't stay home.
Remember, this election is about your future. Which of the candidates will you trust with managing our economy better? Which leader can give us free SHS and enhance the education of our children? Who can you trust to protect us during dark periods such as COVID-19? Who has the competence to protect our economy, build roads and dams?
Do you remember the dark periods of Doomsaw, Create, Loot and Share Brigade?
This December, remember we cannot afford the risk. Let's vote for Nana Akufo-Addo and the NPP to protect our progress.
Thank you for staying on the Midday News here on Joy 99.7 FM. It's now time for sports with Hans.
Now the Black Stars will be looking to secure qualification to the 2021 AFCON as they take on Sudan this afternoon. Ghana lead Group C with 9 points and will be through to next year's AFCON with victory against the 1970 AFCON winners. Coach C.K. Akono will be without skipper Andre Dede Ayew due to injury. Akono has named Jordan Ayew as skipper for this afternoon's clash.
He's not in, and so there's nothing. There won't be necessary for us to talk about it. Yes, we've lost him. He delivered. He gave us the 2 goals the other day, and now he's no more there, and so we have to deal with it. And strategically, we are trying to find a way, or we will find a way as to how we play. So we need a balance of attacking, and of course, at the same time, we will defend. In our first game, we found ourselves struggling with this possession. That is what we've worked on since the last match, and so we're looking forward to improve in that area because we give the opponent a bit of counter-attack situations, and of course we expect them to come with 2 strikers. They are playing home, they need to win, and so we need to be better in that area. And I think once we are good in that, we'll find a good solution.
And CK Akono's starting 11 is already out. Goalkeeper Rawlings Atizigi will be imposed for the Black Stars. Baba Rama, Nicholas Opoku, John Boy, and Alexander Jiku form the four-man defense. In midfield, he has a free Aqua Tariq Fosu, Jeffrey Slop, and Mubarak Wakaso with Jordan Ayew and Caleb Kuban up front for the Black Stars. That's your sport.
Thanks, Hans. And spokesperson for the National Chief Imam, Sheikh Arimaya Shaibu, says President Jerry John Rawlings must be credited with the interfaith cooperation model which allowed prayers of the three main religious groups before national events. Speaking on day 2 of the signing of the Book of Condolence opened in his honor, he said J.J. Rawlings helped in making Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha national holidays,
which was upheld by subsequent president of our country. It has become the foundation for dialogue, for unity, which currently the country is enjoying. It has remained a model for interfaith cooperation and collaboration, which other nations are coming to Ghana to also learn from. Rawlings, the Chief Imam, said, is somebody who was very caring, very compassionate.
You heard the spokesperson for the National Chief Imam, Sheikh Arimaya Shaibu, and the Archbishop of the Archdiocese of Cape Coast, Charles Palmer Bako, says history will vindicate the contributions of former President Rawlings to Ghana.
We have to admit that an era has come to an end. And we also have to admit that unlike other heads of state in other African countries and even beyond, when his term of office, 2 terms were over, he handed over power and he stayed as a citizen of this country, contributing his share. And so that is the weight of the impact we have to admit that Jerry John Rawlings has had on Ghana.
You heard the Archbishop of the Cape Coast Archdiocese of the Catholic Church, Palmer Bako. Let's now speak to Maxwell Agbagba. He's at the conference center. Maxwell, other religious leaders have been signing the Book of Condolence. Who do you have there and what have they been saying about the former president? Well, we lost Maxwell there, unfortunately, but let's quickly jump to entertainment. Mapito Sividi is here.
Bernice, Information Minister Kojo Nkrumah revealed his involvement in politics was purely accidental. Speaking on E-Vibes, the politician says his plan was to focus on business, but God had other plans.
I always mention that politics was purely by accident. So when I left radio and then I was in law school, the Member of Parliament here, David Oponkusi, had completed his 12-year tenure and was exiting, and we're looking for a new candidate. So it's right around these same areas where we are talking to executives that, listen, look for somebody who is young and has energy and can do X, Y, Z. And so when I left and I went to Accra, then 2 others, Alaji Awal, he's not here, and then Mr. Samoa, they came back to me in Accra and said, we've been thinking about it and we think you should be our candidate.
And how did you take it?
Well, initially I was like, that's not my path. That's not what I want to do. I want to practice my law, build my business, and move on. But they're very persuasive.
You can watch E-Vibes, I beg your pardon, on Joy Prime every Saturday at 8 a.m. Now let's go to Twitter because hashtag increase NSS allowance is trending, and at Derek7344 says it's high time NSS increases this allowance, saying Chale from Accra to Tema every day it no be easy. And Michael Morgan says 560 is really hard to survive with in this COVID-19 time. Please, President, give it a second look for us. Hashtag increase NSS allowance.
Thank you very much, Maps. And that's how we end this edition of the Midday News here on Joy 99.7 FM. I really appreciate your company. There's more news when you log on to myjoyonline.com. Thanks so much for choosing us, your home of independent, fearless, and credible journalism. Up next, though, we have Living Word with Dr. Mensur Table. He's continuing his series on choices. And later at 1, we've got business news for you.
When you want it, just move it. When you tire for the long queue,